All right, everybody, let's get started. Good afternoon, folks, and welcome to the North Carolina Museum of Natural Sciences into the Daily Planet Theater for Dino Dig Live. This is a very special opportunity that we have to connect with our museum dinosaur experts, our paleontologists, who are right now somewhere in the world looking for dinosaurs. I think today we are headed to Utah, where we get to meet the Paleontology Research Lab Operations Manager, Lisa Herzog. Lisa, are you there?
I am here. How are you guys? Good morning. We're about 2 hours behind you, so it's still only 10 o'clock here.
Sorry, we lost the very beginning of that. Where? So you're in Utah. What time did you say it is?
It's 10 o'clock here. I said good morning. It's 10 o'clock here because we're 2 hours behind.
Well, it's good to see you. Thanks for calling in today. How are things out there in the middle of somewhere?
Things are going really well. Our team is kind of wrapping things up. We're getting ready to leave. Tomorrow, we're going to break camp and pack everything up, and then the next day, everybody flies out. And some of our crew is going to go on to Montana for the next leg of our journey and excavations.
Very cool. So, the team has been in Utah. You've been working some dinosaur fossil sites. What's the update? What's been going on? Found anything cool?
Well, the quarry that we had been working last week when I talked to you, we finished up that floor quarry and closed it down. There was still bone coming out, and so we'll have to come back next year to continue excavations. But we were able to collect a lot of material. One of the things we collected was a pretty large field jacket that contains the one of the legs and some of the lower part of the body of an Eolambia dinosaur, which is a duck-billed dinosaur. We're thinking it might be a juvenile because it's rather small. And so we were really happy that we finally were able to cap that entire thing and carry it out of the quarry. It took our entire crew of 6 people to get it back to camp. And so what we do is tie it onto a stretcher, and everybody takes a handhold around it, and we carry it out like it's a patient, very carefully, and get it back to camp so we can put it on the truck to come back to North Carolina.
Is it in one of those trucks, like right behind you?
It's not in the truck yet. It's still on the ground.
Okay.
It's like right on the ground behind me, actually wrapped up. We wrap it up. Well, we put a tarp over it in case it rains. We don't want to get wet. So far we haven't had a ton of rain, although every single day it seems like it looks like it's going to rain, but we haven't really had a lot of rain. Last night we had a windstorm. My tent is totally destroyed now. I ended up having to sleep in the truck. But it's all calm now, so we're good.
Sorry for your tent. Oh my gosh. The life of a paleontologist.
Yeah, the UV light really destroys the fabric and then it just rips, basically.
I don't, Lisa, when you went to paleontologist school, did they tell you that you would be going on digs where there'd be windstorms and your tent would be destroyed?
Yeah, that's all stuff you learn by going out into the field. Of course, they do warn you, make sure you get a good tent, make sure you get a low profile dome tent so that it can withstand the winds and everything. Although there is just kind of a limit to how much it can handle after so much UV light is just beating down on it day after day after day. The tents just don't last very long out here. Well, the one I have now is my third field season with it, but I think it's done.
Wow, that's crazy stuff. Well, outside of windstorms, tell us a little bit about the work that you've been doing out in Utah. You mentioned finding this Eolambia, but what has been the type of work you've been engaged in every single day?
I've been out here, we've been out here for about 2.5 weeks. Well, me personally. Some of the crew was out here before I even got here, so they've been here even longer. Um, and during my time here, we spent most of the time working that quarry where the Eolambia came from. Um, there are a lot of bones coming out from that quarry. This is some a locality that we found a couple of years ago, and we've been working it for the past few years, and it's still producing bone. Um, and now, since we shut down that quarry for the season, we went out prospecting. Um, the other day, didn't find a ton of stuff. I mean, we found a couple areas where bones seemed to be coming out and was on the surface, but it was mostly bits and pieces where we didn't really find a source. So anything that we could actually dig up. But we did visit this other quarry or this other site that seems to be producing something. We're not sure. We're hopeful that it's either ankylosaur or maybe ceratopsian. But we will need to go back and excavate that even more to find out what's actually there because we didn't collect enough bone to really determine that. Then yesterday we went to a different site that we had visited before that is just plant material. So we're not just looking at, let's get some dinosaur stuff, but we're also looking at, what did the entire environment look like? What's the ecosystem around here? And so we found a site where there's just plant material. We collected a bunch of that yesterday. Then like this big storm rolled in and it never rained on us, but we really thought it was going to. So we had to cut our day a little bit short because we're collecting stuff from there. And then I visited another site that's producing a lot of turtle bits and pieces too.
Actually, sounds like you're finding a whole lot of stuff. You mentioned prospecting though. So what's the first thing that you do when you show up out here in the desert and you want to find fossils, whether it's plants or animals?
Well, we come out here because we're looking in a specific formation called the Mustn't Touch It, member of the Cedar Mountain Formation. And it is from a specific time period that Dr. Lindsay Zano specializes in. It's the mid-Cretaceous. It's about 90 to 100 million years old. That's how much time it spans. The thing about the mustn't touch it is that you can see where it's exposed at the surface because it has a very distinctive look to it. It's very gray and kind of, it doesn't really have layers. And it's the right on top of it, it's capped by a blocky sandstone. And so where you see this blocky sandstone, underneath it, you'll see these gray mudstones. And so we kind of target those areas, and that's what we're prospecting. We go out and walk anywhere we see that the mustn't touch it is exposed.
Very interesting. Very cool. So there was one question that's come in from the audience right now, and they want to know how hot it is out there.
Right now it's not bad in the shade. I think it's still in the 80s. It's going to get into the 90s today. There's not a whole lot of clouds in the sky. When there's no clouds, it gets really, really hot really fast. The sun really heats things up. So it'll probably get close to 100 today in the sun.
Wow. Incredible stuff. And so, folks, if you're here with me inside the Daily Planet Theater and you've got questions and want to talk to Lisa, just wave at me. You can actually come up on stage, use the microphone, and chat directly to Lisa yourself and ask your questions. You can also just tell me what your question is, and I'd be happy to repeat it. And for our viewers who are watching on the YouTube live stream, you can type your questions into the chat. I've got it pulled up, and we'll get your questions shared into the program as well. Lisa, I'm curious about some of the plant material that you said you found. How did you come across that? I think of plant fossils as being even harder to find than, say, dinosaur bones. Is that true?
Um, there seems to be less of it out here. People always um wonder about why it has to be a special plant site. Um, One of the things about the process of things becoming fossils is that it takes a slightly different conditions for plants to fossilize than fossils, than actual bone. And so we don't often find a lot of plant material when we find bone, just because the two environments required to make a fossil are different. It doesn't mean we don't find plant material with bone, but a lot of times, if you find a really, really good plant site, there's not really any fossil bone there. And the stuff that we're finding is, it seems to be an area where just a bunch of plant material accumulated. So what we're finding are a lot of leaf impressions, a lot of different leaves. We're finding like stems and branching plants and some conifers and some really kind of interesting things. One of our crew, Nathan, yesterday actually found a little bivalve in there, which was kind of interesting. It was the only like shell material that we found at this site, that's mostly plant. And so that'll help us put everything in context as well.
Very cool. Very interesting, especially the bivalve. I think of fossils like that as coming out of, I don't know, you find fossil shells on like the beaches in North Carolina or in our streams, but out there in the desert, that seems interesting.
Yeah, well, a lot of people don't know that during the mid-Cretaceous, there was an inland sea that came up through the center of the continent called the Interior Seaway. And so if you imagine like the Gulf of Mexico going all the way up to Canada, that's kind of what it was like. And so we do find a lot of, some of the beds here have marine fossils. We do find other shell material. And some of the sites where we're finding dinosaurs and animal bones are also, it would have been kind of a deltaic environment. It would have been very tropical, and warm. Um, kind of, I mean, it's hot today, but it would have been a lot more lush. The plant life around here would have been more like Florida or a tropical area.
That's so wild to think about. The middle of the US just being like a tropical coastal type environment.
Yeah, definitely. It's a lot different now than it was back then.
Really cool stuff. I'm gonna look around again. Reminder, if you're just joining me here in the theater and you've got questions you want to talk to our paleontology team, ask them about, just wave at me and you can ask anything that you'd like. So Lisa, you talked to us about going prospecting, walked around, found some stuff. What's the next step? What does the team then do once you say you think you've got a spot where you found something interesting?
Well, we're on federal land here and we have different types of permits. With a prospecting permit, you can dig a 1 meter by 1 meter hole. Sorry, I lost my.
I thought you were just showing
And
us the sky.
try to try and find out where the bone is actually eroding out of. We can dig like a 1 meter by 1 meter hole. And if we actually find a source of bone indicating there's like more of an entire skeleton or more other stuff in the same area, we will have to report it to the BLM and then go back and file for a different permit, an excavation permit, which allows us to dig a much bigger hole and
I
open
should
it
have
up
known
as an
that the
official quarry.
I should have known that the answer to my question would be paperwork.
It is paperwork, yes. And so, everything has to be documented and um the way the land is managed out here, they are monitoring some areas for endangered species and stuff. And so they have to ensure that we're not disturbing the environment of anything endangered. And so we'll tell them where it is, and they'll come out and assess the site and say, yeah, you can dig there. Fortunately, the areas we're working really doesn't have a lot of endangered stuff, and we always want to dig where there isn't vegetation anyway, so it's not like we're killing vegetation to dig a hole because nothing grows on the mustn't touch it, basically. So we usually don't have problems getting permits.
Okay, well that's helpful. That's interesting. So
Hmm.
then, all right, you start digging, and I guess that's the work that you say you've been doing the last few weeks there. You've already discovered sites, you have the permits to do the digging, and now you're actually opening up the ground and pulling fossils up out, packaging them up,
Hmm.
and then bringing back to the museum. How long does it take to dig up an entire dinosaur?
Well, I mean, if we actually found an entire dinosaur, it takes quite a long time. And, just moving it from the site back to camp could be difficult because there's no roads where that lead to right to our sites, and so we're hand carrying all this stuff back. Um, and it can take multiple years to get an entire skeleton, and in some cases, we'll work a quarry for several years. Each site is different.
Just depends on what you're finding, I suppose. Although you made it sound like
Right,
you don't
yeah.
normally find whole skeletons of animals buried.
It's
What
really
do you
rare to
find
find.
most often?
What we usually are finding isolated pieces. I mean, we're lucky if we find more than one bone of a skeleton when we dig. Sometimes we get lucky and we find a bunch of things all associated with the same animal. Um, Most of the time, you're just finding a portion of the skeleton just because of the way things are preserved out here.
Okay. So, question from the audience for you that just came in. How did you decide
Okay.
to search for fossils at this site? Was it a prospecting walk? I'm going to make sure I get your question right. Were you walking around on a prospecting thing and just happened to see something come up? Or were there other ways? Oh, okay, I see. Lisa, why are you in the Mustn't Touch It? How did you know to go look there for fossils?
The mustn't touch it has been known for producing material for decades now. It has been worked by other paleontologists. One of the other people who have worked out here kind of specialized in mammals, so did a lot of microfossil work. Um, Lindsay Zano wanted to come out here because she specializes in theropod dinosaurs, and she's looking at the transitional period from like the really early Cretaceous to the end Cretaceous. There just wasn't a lot of information on theropods in the mid Cretaceous, and so we're trying to find the big theropod predator or smaller theropod predators that lived during this time. And since we've been working out here, Lindsay has named two new species of theropod. One of them is Siach, which is a very large apex predator, and one of them is Moros, which is a real kind of small, fleet-footed tyrannosaur from this area. And so we're always looking for more skeletal material from those two species because while there was enough material to name them as a new species, there's a lot of the skeleton that we don't have that we would love to have, particularly skull elements.
Very cool. And how did you know that this rock that you're working in is the 90 million, 100 million year old type of rock for the animals that you hope to find? Like, how do you know that the rock at the Mustn't Touch It is the age for what you hope to find?
So age dating is more of a geological process. So we collaborate with a geologist out here, and you can look at the capping rocks and the rocks that are below, and you can also like specifically age date them using zircon crystals that are found in ash. So there was like volcano activity during that time, and you can get an exact age date from the volcanic ashes. So there's multiple lines of evidence and ways to show the actual either relative age or exact age of the bedrock here.
Okay, and so then you know exactly you've got the right time period, and then it's just a matter of identifying
Hmm.
where these bones are. Let me get another question from the audience. Yeah, go ahead. Ooh, very good question for you, Lisa. Were you on the dig for the dueling dinosaurs?
I've been to Montana and I've been out to that area where they were found. The dueling dinosaurs were actually discovered and collected in 2006. And they were collected by a private commercial collector. So nobody from the museum was there at that time.
But and then let's see what in last year or 2 years ago, the team went to the dig site where they came from to do a little more work
Hmm.
and assess the site. Can you give us?
Yeah,
Were you a part of that team? Did you get to do any of that?
I didn't get to go to the site. I was there
Aw.
excavating, prospecting in other areas of Montana. Our crew kind of split up to go to different areas and collect some things. Um, so I was working on excavating another Tyrannosaurus Rex site that we had found. Unfortunately, it turned out to be not much. And we've just collected a few isolated bones from there um, during that time.
And now that the dueling dinosaurs are, well, they've been out of the ground, but they're out of the ground. They're here at the museum. I guess that's kind of the last step in the paleontology process, at least as far as the field work is concerned, is they get dug up and then they come back to Raleigh. They go into the lab.
Yeah, and so that's actually in the lab is where the real paleontological research starts. That's where we are removing the rest of the rock from the bones and starting the kind of like analysis of them. And one of the things I know they're working on in there right now um, is the histology of the bones. And so we're slicing them, some of the bones, and making a very, very thin section that's glued onto a slide so that under a microscope, we can actually see the cellular structure of the bones. And this can tell us a lot about their growth strategies, their growth patterns, how fast they grew, whether or not it was a full grown adult when it died, and how old it was when it died as well by studying the thin section of the bone. You can see how old it was by looking at like lines of growth. Let's see, we've taken the skull off of the Tyrannosaur block to have it CT scanned. And we've done some of the preparation on that to make it a little bit thinner so the CT scans will come out better. And that'll help us determine exactly what species that Tyrannosaur is and how it fits in with the Tyrannosaur family tree, so to speak.
Very cool, very interesting stuff. Let me toss you some questions that are coming in from the chat over here on YouTube. You mentioned working with geologists to figure out, for example, the age of the rocks, so you know where to go looking. But one of our viewers looks like they know quite a few paleontologists. Do you know Don W, Jim Kirkland, LJ Krimenacher, or Ethan Cowgill? Sounds like they might be working on the other side of the hill from you.
Yeah, Jim Kirkland is the Utah State paleontologist. And yeah, we've collaborated with him. Sometimes he comes and visits us when we're out here. I haven't seen him this year. And Don DeBlue is, I think, he also works for or works with Jim Kirkland. I think he's a preparator, and does some of the technical stuff. And who are the other people?
Oh, let's see. Some other names that they threw out were Krimenacher and Cowgill.
Yeah, those
I
names
could
are
also be
familiar to me, but I
mispronouncing
don't
these
know.
names.
I'm not sure if I've met them before. Josh Lively also works out here and is based in Price, which isn't too far away from here, and we've collaborated with him too. One of our Dino Lab preparator, Matt Mers, just left to go work for Josh Lively, so he's going to be working out here. So we were sad to see him go from the Dino Lab, but we'll still run into him, I'm sure, when we're out here in years to come.
Very cool. It's glad to know there's lots of folks and lots of connections. So another question for
Yeah.
you, because you mentioned Siach, somebody in the chat is curious what type of theropod, what type of carnivore dinosaur Siach was. Where does it fit into the family tree?
Okay, so I'm not a theropod expert. Siach is not a tyrannosaur. Siach is I can't remember what it's called. It's the three-fingered theropod, kind of like Acropanthosaurus. And so one of the unique things about Siach was that, to find the apex predator of the time living here was a different type of theropod than Tyrannosaur, right? And the Tyrannosaur we found is much smaller, so Moros is really little. And so, during this time, tyrannosaurs had not been able to fill that apex predator niche. But as we see in much younger beds, like in the Hell Creek Formation, Tyrannosaurus rex was the apex predator of the time. And so, something happened evolutionarily where the siaches kind of died out, allowing tyrannosaurs to grow bigger to fill that niche and become the apex predator.
Oh, I see. I see. Somebody in the chat says that maybe Siach was an allosaur type.
Um,
Maybe,
I'm
maybe
not
not.
sure. I don't want to misspeak.
The
Well,
I
I'm
think you
sure a
could.
lot of people out there know a lot more than I do than about tyrannosaur or about theropods. Yeah.
That you will. They can email the museum. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
So, Lisa, you said that today, tomorrow are your last couple of days in the field, and then you pack
Yep.
everything up and come back to Raleigh. What happens next?
Well, the trucks are going to Montana. I'm going to Raleigh. The trucks are going on to Montana, and the Montana crew, their task this year is to collect a palm frond. So last year they found a palm frond. It's about 7 feet tall,
Oh, wow.
in the Hell Creek Formation, which is really cool because it's the largest one ever found in that formation. And so we're going to collect that and bring it back to the museum and hopefully get it on display, once we get done with dueling dinosaurs, and that'll go on display. We can incorporate that into the exhibit as well because it's from the same ecosystem. And so that's going to be a pretty big task for them to accomplish this year. And then everything comes back to the museum after that.
Oh wow, that's going to be so cool to see that thing well being pulled out of the ground one, but then also when it makes its way back to Raleigh. The you said it's the largest palm frond ever recovered?
No, ever found in the Hell Creek Formation.
Ever found in the Hell Creek. Okay. Well, that's still really cool.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's very cool. And the Hell Creek has been sampled, and lots of people work in the Hell Creek. And so to find something new is kind of, you know, exciting because there's fewer and fewer new things coming out of there because so many people work in the Hell Creek Formation.
So Lisa, what's the worst part of being a paleontologist?
Paperwork.
It's the paperwork.
It's the paperwork. Being out here or working with the fossils, working with the people that I get to work with is all really great. You know, for the most part, I love being in paleo. I love teaching people about science and, you know, what discoveries we're making. And then I have to go back to my office sometimes and just fill out a lot of
I was going to ask what your favorite part is, but it sounds like everything except the paperwork is the best part of being
everything
a
except the
paleontologist.
paperwork. Yeah. The paleo community overall is a really great community of people. And so it's really nice to be a part of it and to have so many colleagues around the world and people that, you know, next time you see them, you know, you'll have something to talk about with them. And it's kind of like a reunion every time you get together, you know.
Well, that's fantastic stuff. Lisa, thank you for taking time out of your day, out of your work to call back here into the museum and share an update with us and share about the work that's going on.
No problem. I'm glad everybody's interested in what we're doing.
And thanks for taking time out of your birthday to join us as well.
Yeah,
I
today's
hope
my
that there's
birthday.
happy birthday. I don't maybe they'll make you like a
hmm
mud pie or something to celebrate.
I don't know. Well, I had pancakes, blueberry pancakes for breakfast, so that was pretty awesome. Yeah, having my
Did they
birthday in
put
the
candles in
summertime, a lot of times I'm in the field when it's my birthday.
it? Did they put some candles in the pancakes for you to blow out this morning?
No, we can't have candles, they'll melt.
Of course, right. It's 100 degrees today. You can't have
Yeah.
candle wax. Well, Lisa, thanks so much. Everybody in the chat is expressing their birthday wishes for you as well, including Nico, who is in there watching,
Oh,
just so you
hi,
know.
Nico. Hi, Milan. That's my husband and my other son that aren't here. My one son is out here with me. He's having a good time.
That's awesome. Love to hear that. So,
hmm
everybody, hey, thanks for joining us today. Thanks for participating in our Dino Dig Live program today. We will be back here again next Saturday, August 3rd, I believe is the date. And then again for our final update from the field on August 9th. For the month of August, we'll be chatting with the paleontology team in the Hell Creek, I believe, in Montana. We'll be seeing,
hmm
we'll get some updates, maybe even on this really cool palm frond that they're having. So come and
Yeah,
find
yeah.
us here
hmm
inside the Museum of Natural Sciences next week and the week after that. Or, of course, you can go to the museum's YouTube channel where you can find the live stream where we're broadcasting this live on the internet. Links and everything are at the museum's website, naturalsciences.org. And, of course, you can come here 6 days a week and see what's happening inside paleontology by visiting the Paleontology Research Lab on the 3rd floor or coming and seeing the progress inside Dueling Dinosaurs, free and open to the public, 6 days a week. And you can follow Dueling Dinosaur progress online as well. So, Lisa, we'll let you get back to work or back to not working since it's your birthday, whichever you happen to do. And thanks for
hmm
calling in.
All right. Have a great day, everybody. Nice to see you. Bye.
Thanks for visiting, folks. We'll see you again soon. Bye, everybody.